Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. So today is our second day of understanding the Quran series. Today we are going to discuss Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening of the Quran. Surah consists of 7 verses. First verse is in the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Second one is praise belongs to the God, the sustaining Lord of all the worlds. Third one is the most beneficent, the most merciful. Fourth one is the master of judgment day. Fifth one is it is you we worship, it is you we ask for help. Sixth one is show us on the right way. And last one is the way of those whom you have blessed, who incur no anger and are not astray. The above passage, Al-Fatiha, is the opening surah of the Quran. It comes also at the beginning of each rakah section of the Islamic formal daily prayers. Without it, the prayer is not complete. On account of these first two functions, it has developed a third, more wide-ranging function in the social and cultural life of Muslims. Chronologically, these three functions came into being in this order, and it is in this order that we shall deal with them. So, this compact passage, an independent surah of the Quran, consists of 7 verses divided into 3 groups: invocation, affirmation, and petition, in a sequential progression that exemplifies the conclusively convincing logic of Quranic material. As will be demonstrated, the passage embodies the essence of Islam, which is Tawheed, oneness of the God. The first verse was above we have divided these 7 verses into 3 groups: invocation, affirmation, and petition. The first verse is in invocation, in which we say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. The invocation in the name of Allah is a dedication to God. In Arabic, it is also an expression on the part of the reader that he or she begins his or her act with the invocation of the God, so that the act begins with and is accompanied by his name. The Arabic preposition be, Bismillah, be, has several meanings: beginning, dedication, accompaniment, and instrumentality. In this passage, all these are applicable. So the preposition has multiple meanings. Unfortunately, there is no equivalent word in English that carries the same range of meanings, and consequently there is an inevitable loss in translations. The translator has to opt for one word that carries only one of these. Coming as the beginning, the preposition be demonstrates one of the major problems in translating the Quran: the limited possibilities of conveying the wealth of the original that resides even in the smallest word. There are several examples of this even in this short surah. In Islam, Allah is the name of God in the absolute sense, the only personal name. All other beautiful names are adjectives or attributes. In this Quranic verse, we meet the first description of Allah as Al-Rahman, Al-Rahim. In Arabic, the most beneficent, the most merciful. So they are the most frequently recurring attributes of God in the Quran. Both are intensive forms of the adjectives in Arabic. Al-Rahman in particular is used in Arabic exclusively for God. Translators give a variety of renderings: gracious and merciful, compassionate and merciful, beneficent and merciful, the compassionate. Both words derive from the same root in Arabic, rahm, the general meaning of which is mercy, and from the same root comes the word rahm, which means warm. Thus, there is a hadith in which Allah Almighty says, I have created the rahim and given it a name derived from my name. Whoever keeps the bond of the kinship connected, I will keep him connected to me, and whoever severs it, I will sever him from me. Because Rahman and Rahim derive from the same root, translating them into the words with different roots like compassionate and merciful loses the connection. Exegetes of the Quran have given different opinions of the meaning of these words. Some take Rahman as showing mercy in this world and the next, with Rahim applying only to the next. Others see Rahman applying to believers and non believers, and Rahim to believers only, or Rahman as provider of mercy in relation to a large scale things, and Rahim to small scale things, or Rahman as provider of mercy which only God can provide, while Rahim can also be provided by humans. In many opinions, and there are so many uh, exegetes of the Quran which and all have different opinions. So, in my opinion, the most likely meaning of Al Rahman can be derived from Surah 55 named Al Rahman, where manifestations of God's beneficence and bounty are illustrated. In any case, the combination of Al Rahman, Al Rahim, frequent in the Quran, is used only for God, and together they encompass all meanings of mercy and are therefore the most fitting first attributes of God in the Quran. Second verse was Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise belongs to the God, the sustaining Lord of all the worlds. Following the dedication, the reader's relationship with God is shown as one of praise. The generic Alhamdu, so the generic Al in Arabic makes the word Hamd encompass all praise. The Quran explains elsewhere, the seven heavens, the earth, and all who dwell in them glorify Him. All creatures celebrate His praise, yet you cannot understand their praises. In such a compact passage as the Fatiha, used at the beginning of the Quran and the ritual prayer, the choice of this word Alhamd is very fitting. This is reinforced in Arabic by the choice of nominal rather than verbal sentence, which would have limited it to a certain person or tense, which has this general sense, can also be understood as referring to a pronoun. For example, my praise is to God. Hamd is followed by li. Alhamdu lillahi. So, li, the first meaning of which is belongs to, but it can also mean is due to. It is a declaration and affirmation rather than a tentative wish like that subjective be in praise be to Him. So, the literary multiplicity of meaning observed in the very first letter of the passage is discerned here too, as hamd in Arabic means both praise and thanks. The reader of Arabic understands both meanings, where the English translation again narrows the word to one single sense. So, praise belongs to God, who has three attributes. First one is Rabbul Alameen. Rabb is normally translated as Lord, but this is a rather limiting, since the Arabic word carries within it the root meaning of caring and sustaining. Again, there is no equivalent single word in English carrying all these meanings. Al Alameen is translated as the worlds, being the plural of Alam. The exegetes state that God is the Lord of the worlds of human, plant, earth, heavens, this world, and the next, the physical and spiritual, etc. In short, He is the Lord of everything. Rabb, Rabbu kulli shay. Al-Alamin occurs sometimes in the Quran, meaning only all human beings. Again, whoever reads the word in Arabic understands a multiplicity of meaning. Through praising the cherishing Lord of all beings, one becomes aware that one is, like everything else, part of this vast creation of God under the lordship and care of God. The word alam is defined in Arabic and Islamic theology as meaning ma siwa Allah, what is other than God. Therefore, Rabbul Alameen singles God out as the one and only God, encapsulating in a short, compact phrase this most central belief system in Islam, for which the Quran gives many proofs. Al Rahman Ar Rahim, third one, second verse, second attribute of Allah, Ar Rahman Ar Rahim, the most beneficent and the most merciful, repeats for emphasis this important epithet, which is central to the description of God in this surah. All surahs except for nine number surah begin with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, but here the description is also incorporated into the surah itself. Placing mercy in the middle makes it extend to encompass his lordship and his mastery of the day of judgment. And third attribute of God is Malik Yawmuddin, which means master, sovereign, king, ruler, honor, and wielder of the day of judgment. Here again, the central theme of oneness is emphasized, since no sovereignty will stand on the day of judgment other than God. So, Deen is translated variously as judgment, reckoning, requital, doom, recompense. This last attribute of God is so fundamental in the Quran and Islamic theology and so frequently recurring that a prominent place was reserved for it in this brief surah. It is natural that Master of the Day of Judgment comes chronologically as the last of the three attributes of God. So, adjectives are prominent in the structure of this surah. We have three attributes of God here in this first place of the surah. There will be two adjectives describing the path or the way in the later part of surah, and three describing the followers of that path. So, this adjectival scheme is important for the progression of ideas. The passage, like others in the Quran, has its own internal logic. God is praised because he is Lord of all the worlds, most beneficent, most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. Who then should be more worthy of praise than the one described in this way? Now, next one is affirmation. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. It is you we only worship, and it is you we only ask for help. This comes at the center of the passage and follows logically from the earlier part. Only when the first part has been considered can the second follow naturally. Who is more worthy of being singled out for worship and in seeking help other than the caring Lord of all the worlds, the most beneficent, the most merciful, the Master of the day of judgment? Because there is judgment, the judgment should be prepared for by worship. Placing the object you, ijaka, before the verb singles God out for worship and makes him the only source of help. Again, the essence of worship and religions in Islam. In the first part of the surah, praise in general is affirmed as belonging to Allah Almighty. Whether the specific reader or worshipper is there or not, it is confined neither to a verbal subject or tense, and it can be affirmed by humans, the angels, or even by God Himself at the beginning of the Quran. Moving to the second section, however, the reader or the servant has to affirm that he or she worships God exclusively and seeks His help. The first section prepares him for this and brings him nearer to Allah Almighty to address Him. Here we have the shift from the third person to the second person, an example of iltifat as an important feature of the style of the Quran, discussed later under the dynamic style session. In this central section, God is worshipped, but He also provides help. A remote God from whom help cannot be expected is not the Islamic conception of God. This is also psychologically helpful to those who are inclined to always expect something for anything they give. Now the next ayah is about the petition. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Show us the right way. Having invoked God and affirmed His attributes and His worship and sought His help, the reader can naturally move on to seek that help more specifically in the final part of this surah. Here we have one single but crucial request: guidance. And who can give it better than God, whose praise and worship have already been affirmed? The request is not for the worldly gain, but relates fundamentally to the function of the Quran guidance. So, the single request is for guidance to the right way, and this is expressed in the concrete, tangible, and definite image of Sirat. This image shows the believer to be moving forward and coming to crossroad where only one road leads to the desired destination, God and His pleasure. It thus connects the text and leads the believer to the God. The believer is active in searching and praying for divine guidance to show him that path. The path is not described as that of Islam, but it has two attributes. Firstly, it is a straight and right. This is the surest and shortest way to the destination. And secondly, it has been tested before and proved right, taking the person to the good company of those whom you have blessed. These are described elsewhere in the Quran in chapter 4, verse number 69. As the prophets, those who do not deviate from the truth, martyrs, and the righteous one, and how goodly a company are these. So, an illustration of the principle, different parts of the Quran explains each other. The sequence of material makes the surah convincing throughout. Who is more worthy of being praised than the Lord of the worlds, the merciful, the master of the day of the judgment? Who is more worthy of being worshipped and asked for help than him? In the same way, who would reject a path described as being straight, leading to proven success with an excellent company? The followers of the path are described in three ways. They are blessed, favored by God. Consequently, second one is they are not the objects of anger, and third one is they are not astray. This is the persuasive nature of the Quranic language, which is in this passage does not include anything repellent or discouraging. Every section in the way it is presented is acceptable in itself and leads naturally to the subsequent section. The request of the believer then appears to be significant and perfectly acceptable to right-minded people. Blessing the followers of the path is attributed to God. The path of those you have blessed, being the object of anger and being astray, are not related to God in this way. The second group is those who incur anger. Anger can be from God, the angels, the human beings, or other creatures. It is wrong to say with whom you are angry or wrathful, as many translators do, since this deviates from the original Arabic and adds a quality of God which does not appear anywhere in this passage. In fact, the entire picture of God in Surah Al-Fatiha is benign and beautiful, the beneficent, the most merciful, caring Lord. Even as the Master of Day of Judgment, He is the source of help who gives guidance and blessing. He is not said to be angry or leading people astray. Non-Muslim believers can without difficulty appreciate such a picture of God, and the sentiments expressed throughout the surah are equally acceptable to believers in God, whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims. So some translators render verse number 6 as guide us into or along the straight path, meaning Islam. This is a possible meaning with the believer already guided to Islam as a religion, asking to be conformed within that path and guided along it, but it does not have to be confined to that meaning. Hidayah or guidance to the right course is required at any moment in any person's life. It is not only moral or religious guidance but the correct way of taking any action. It occurs in this sense in certain verses of the Quran. It is those who are already Muslims who plead to God in their prayers 17 times spaced throughout the day to be shown the right way in any situation. In the same way as a believer at the beginning of the surah is aware of the whole creation of the God. So at the end of the surah, he is aware of the company he prays to be joined with, but also aware of other to whom he does not wish to be joined. His vision is not confined simply to his own group, and three groups at the end of surah actually encompass all people, since anyone is either blessed on the right course or not blessed and astray from the right course. The Fatiha opens the Quran and contains its essence. The Prophet ﷺ called it Ummul Quran, the essence of the Quran. It is seen by Muslim scholars as encapsulating the Quran as Quran's whole message on God and His attributes, the relationship between Him and the world, the message that comes from Him through prophets and is to be followed, and the variety of responses and destinations of the different groups. It is natural, therefore, that this table of content comes at the beginning of the Quran to open it. The request guide us to the straight way, right way in this first surah is answered immediately at the beginning of the second. This is the book, there is no doubt about it, a guide for all the God conscious, and the rest of the Quran goes on to explain this. With the Fatiha at the beginning, the Quran does not begin chronologically like the Old Testament or genealogically like the New Testament. In next lecture, we will talk about the functions of Fatiha in Islamic prayers.